So yesterday we explained that shops which are not dealing with food, the default position would be, unless there is a real need for people to buy these things on HaMoed, would be to close the shop. I'm not yet talking about where a person has employees. Let's just assume for the moment a person is independently running a shop. However, there is the argument, and the poskim do write this, HaMoed brings this as well, that if you don't open, then this can cause a long-term damage to your reputation as a functioning business, because they see the shop closed for 8, 9 days, and things which you need on a daily basis are not there because it's closed for over a week. Then that could be considered davar ha'aved, because your business which you have now may end up being lost because you're not able to present yourself as a serious business owner. So again, this depends on the circumstances, and if a person genuinely feels that's the case, and it doesn't have to be this is definitely the case. Davar ha'aved, we said in the past, can be even something which is doubtful whether it will be, but there's a chance of it happening. It's not a remote chance, but there's a chance of it happening, that a person's reputation as this business provider will no longer be upheld. Then that could be considered as davar ha'aved and would allow a person to be able to keep his shop open. However, if a person has employees, so this question was already discussed a few hundred years ago about a printing shop, and the printing shop of books had nothing to do with the Moed. And so such a shop, there's no reason why you should be printing books on Chol HaMoed. But this had many employees, and by closing the shop and not printing, the employees would still be able to get their salary and not have to do any work. Is that considered davar ha'aved? Some of the poskim took on that's not considered davar ha'aved, because you're not, the melacha which you want to do, which is to print books, is not directly related to the salary which is going to be have to be incurred for the employees. It's two separate things. It's not, the davar ha'aved is not directly related to the melacha. However, Havadia and other of the poskim took on that at the end of the day, you are going to be losing, in the sense that you're going to have to pay your employees' salaries, and they're going to sit around and do nothing, and your shop is closed. And so that is, he says, Havadia, that is certainly a davar ha'aved, even though the loss is not coming directly through the work, but indirectly, because by them not doing work, you're going to be paying salaries for people who are not doing anything, but you're still losing. You're going to have to pay them their salaries, and you're losing. And so thus, that is considered davar ha'aved, and that is the thing. One can be lenient when one has employees, and if you close your shop, you're going to have to pay them. He considers that to be davar ha'aved. For this reason, Hamadia allows newspapers, which in Israel, for example, which print daily, he allows them to continue to print on Chol HaMoed. And the reason being is, firstly, is that if you don't print, then you're going to still have to pay your employees their monthly salary, if it works like that. If they're paid per article, then just don't do articles and don't do the newspaper. But firstly, he says that's going to be davar ha'aved. Second, he says, if it's expected that there's going to be a newspaper every day and there isn't, and people will end up taking other newspapers, not newspapers which are appropriate for a person. And so he says this is also falls under tzorchei harabim. This is public necessity, which we'll learn about a separate heter, public necessity, and therefore he wants to allow it. So these are examples where you see this principle playing out, and you can see how davar ha'aved can be very flexible and broad. And each time a person needs to genuinely consider the options and consider the consequences of not engaging in their business. Next time we'll talk about employees themselves, people who work for companies. Do they need to take off Chol HaMoed?